Hi guys, so before we get started with this video, I just want to mention to you my brand new platform. So I have now just joined Podia. So on there is a free community where you can find free quizzes, you can find all of my learning materials, and also you've got access to the online courses that I provide as well. So I'll leave a link to that down here and also in the comment section below for you to take a look at. So I'd love to see you in the community asking questions and getting involved, but back to the video. Hi guys, welcome back to the Miss Finance YouTube channel. My name's Rebecca and I'm a chartered accountant in the UK and I run my own bookkeeping and accounts practice. So in today's episode, I'm going to talk you through the things that I wish that I had known before I started out in my own bookkeeping and accounts practice. So stay tuned. So if we just turn back the clock slightly to November, December 2021, you'll have seen on the YouTube channel that as part of the 12 Days of Accounting Christmas, I brought on individuals onto the channel who had their own bookkeeping practices to talk about the ups and downs of being in practice, all about what it's like to be employed and how their businesses were going, etc. So that really made me think about certain things and my priorities. And so I decided that I was going to go ahead and quit my job and start up my own bookkeeping and accountancy practice thereafter. But before I did that, I did quite a bit of research into, basically what is entailed in running your own business, what you need to do to open up your own bookkeeping and accounts practice, what practice certificate do you need, etc. All of these things, and also what to expect. So I spent probably about 4 months or so listening to podcasts, doing a lot of research, reading, listening to things on Audible about people being their own boss, to try and prepare myself to open up my own practice. And I have to say, whilst it helped a little bit, it definitely didn't prepare me for opening my own bookkeeping and accounts practice. So sometimes I think you've just got to live through the experience yourself to some regard. So I'll share with you what I wish I'd known anyway. So I didn't realise, or maybe I had underestimated, the fact that when you become self-employed and you work for yourself, you are no longer just doing the doing. So you might currently be the best employee that anybody's ever had, you might have won awards for being the best employee of the year, but when you become your own boss, you no longer just become, the doer of what you're doing. For example, you're no longer just the accountant or just the bookkeeper. You all of a sudden overnight become the sales department, the IT department, the marketing department, the finance function, and everything in between. So the cleaner, the admin, you name it, that's you. So you've got to cover all aspects of running a business and not just simply doing the doing. And I thought I was handling this really well in the first 6 months, but looking back, actually, I think there could have been a bit more work that could have been done. So I think in the first 6 months, and this wasn't really my fault and won't be your fault either if you have always had an employed role, I was very much looking at the business from an employee's mindset as opposed to an employer's mindset. And you'll see the difference if you do open up your own business and you look at things between 6 months and 12 months, I'd say. You'll realise what I mean by that. Can't really put it on paper or explain it very well, but you'll notice a difference in mindset, basically. So I think that's something that you can't really be that prepared for. You can do a bit of research into the sort of things that you have to do as a business owner in order to market yourself, etc. But I don't think you can really plan ahead for that so much. But what really helped me after the 6 month part was really planning things. So having a timetable for actually doing the marketing, doing the sales, taking the calls from prospects, and also learning how to talk to people. You might be somebody right now who hasn't had a lot of dealings with somebody in a room, meeting new people. You might not have had a heck of a lot of telephone conversations, etc. And you might be really shy, you might dread phone calls, for instance. So it's something that you've got to really work on and get accustomed to. And I think the more you do it, the better you become at it. But it's a bit of a shock if you are a bit of an introvert like myself and then you're trying to run the business and you've got to do all of these moving parts. So that's interesting. So the second thing that I wish I'd known beforehand is marketing. So marketing is 100% a skill set in itself. And I think this is why, if you are a bit of a bigger practice and you've got the funding towards having a marketing department or outsourcing marketing, please do. because there's so much that goes into it that you don't really, again, understand or know until you've done it, and then you think, Jesus, this could be just a full-time job in itself, which it can be. So marketing, I would say, when you're first starting out in bookkeeping and accounting practice, you don't need to have, again, everything perfect. You don't need to have a big marketing budget. You don't need to put out the likes of Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads and all the rest of it, because it doesn't really work. And the reason it doesn't really work is because you've got to build upon having a reputation and relationship with individuals. And when I've spoken to individuals who are in bookkeeping and accounting themselves and run their own practice, they've often commented on the fact that businesses grow by word of mouth. So it's a case of somebody recommending you for doing a good job rather than somebody searching for a bookkeeper or accountant. So I'd say things like Google ads don't necessarily work in the first 6 to 12 months. Maybe they do when you're a little bit more established, but when I've spoken to individuals who, again, are in the same sort of time period as I am in the first 2 years, they often comment that these things don't work. So save yourself the money early on and don't spend it on the likes of Facebook marketing, because I don't think you get the return out of it compared to what you put in. So avoid that. I would concentrate instead on building up the business, building up your reputation, and then going through word of mouth, etc. instead. The next thing that I wish I had known, or really something again that you kind of learn, is that your business doesn't have to be perfect. So there's going to be things that you wish, or when you're dreaming about having this bookkeeping accounting firm, that you think, right, I'm not going to do things the way that my employer did things. I'm going to have, my processes a certain way. I'm going to use this software. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's actually really easy as an employee to sit there and think that until you become the employer, and then you realise how much time and effort and energy goes into setting up processes that are right, setting up the client onboarding, setting up, all of the different softwares that talk to one another and managing all of that. So what I'd say is, when you're starting out, and again, definitely in the first 2 years, don't be afraid to chop and change things if it's not working. And again, what works for another business is not going to work for your own. So don't compare yourself to other businesses who are in the same time frame as you, and maybe they've got different processes that work for them, or maybe they've got a certain way of doing things that works for them. That's fine. Learn about what they do if they're open to sharing, but don't compare yourself, and make sure that the software that you have and the processes that you have are working for you and your clients. So definitely don't be thinking that everything has to be perfect first time, because it doesn't, and there's always room for change. I have to say that even if I had everything exactly how I would want it to be, I think I'd still find some room for improvement. So I think it doesn't matter what size your business is, as a bookkeeper or accountant, there's always room for improvement. And the reason for that also is because technology changes, there's new laws and regulations, new changes in tax, etc., and MTD, etc., that we have to stay on top of. So yeah, there's always room for improvement. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, and I could talk about this all day really, because there's 100,000 different things that I wish I had known before I started out with my own bookkeeping and accounts practice, but I can't talk about them all in this video because we'll be here forever. So what I wish I had done, or more really thought about, and I thought I'd given it enough time and thought before I started out in my own practice, but I didn't, is who your ideal client is. So this could go in a number of different directions. So an ideal client might be based on a certain type of turnover. It might be based on the size of the business, the number of their employees, the industry that they work in. It could even be based on an individual's personality, not necessarily the industry that they work in, or the risks associated with certain industries, etc. So how much risk you're willing to take on with your practice, for instance. So there's all sorts of things that go into choosing who your ideal client is. And one thing that I didn't overlook it, I just didn't think about it that much when I chose my ideal client initially, was that I had chosen an industry where actually a lot of the individuals involved in that industry had, paper documents, they dealt in cash, etc. And the reason why I chose that industry and those individuals to begin with was because that is who I had worked with previously in that industry. So I was used to dealing with this type of individual and their size of business, etc. But actually, I realised, again, 4 months in, that they might not be my ideal client. So I think I've changed my ideal client about 4 times since opening up the practice, and now I think I've found them, and really that's based again off certain criteria of mine, such as personality. So it's okay to chop and change who you decide that you want to work with, but really put some thought in, because if you choose, for instance, subcontractors, let's just say, then they're going to have a heck of a lot of paperwork. Again, they might deal in cash, they might not want to use certain softwares, etc. Whereas you might want to use that software, or you might want to be completely paperless, you might want to work completely remotely, and they might not be happy about that, so they might want an office that they can walk into as opposed to you working remotely. So there's things like that you've got to bear in mind. So just some other things to think about before you go ahead and choose who you want to work with and who you really want to market to. And it's actually quite important to get this down to a T, because you don't want to, when you are a marketing, when you're at that point, to be putting the message out to everybody. You want to be quite selective about who you want to work with and then put that out to them. So yeah, just something to think about. But yeah, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing as always, and I shall catch you at the next video.